Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Morgan and I just wanted to do a quick video today. I thought it would be fun to do a top 5, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 picks for a knitting book. If you like knitting, or if you're interested in learning how to knit, or if you're interested in crafts at all, then keep watching because there'll probably be hopefully there'll be some interesting stuff in here. I run a blog over at YarnEater.com, and really it's my blog for talking about knitting and other crafts in general. So I want to talk about my top 5 picks from my own personal library of knitting books today. I don't have a huge collection, but I do have a fair amount, and I have some that I really love, and that would definitely be my knitting essentials that I couldn't live without. They're not going to be in any particular order, so they're each good for their own reasons. My first choice I don't actually have with me. I can't find my copy for some reason. I think I may have lent it to a friend at some point, so I'm gonna have to do a little digging and track that down. But it is Stitch and Bitch, The Knitter's Handbook by Debbie Stoller. And really it was my go-to guide for learning how to knit. So why do I think it's such a great book? Well, it takes you through all the different pieces, all the different steps that are essential in learning how to knit and learning how to make really awesome knitted projects. She starts to talk about knitting in general, so the craft's history and its sort of current state in modern culture, and especially in popular culture, the recent resurgence in popularity that knitting has had. She then goes on to devote a whole section to techniques, so learning how to knit. So a very comprehensive explanation of basic techniques that you need in order to get started with knitting and kind of progress into maybe the intermediate stage of knitting. After that, she has a collection of, I think, about 20 or 30 patterns that come from a whole bunch of different designers that submitted their patterns to the book. So a big collection, and they're all fairly basic. They can all be done with the techniques that she explains in the book. So it is a really great starting guide for knitting. It has everything you need really to get started in one nice little compact paperback book. Illustrations are helpful and accurate. There's also cute little illustrations throughout the whole book, and everything is just very colorful and bright and very sort of modern looking. It's not black and white and boring and cheap looking. So that I like about it. Another thing is just her writing style. When I first was learning to knit and I was reading through this book, I was obsessed with it. I would literally reread it, and I couldn't get enough of it because she, aside from being very informative and helpful, is just a really good writer. She includes a lot of anecdotes and it's really funny. My second pick, which I actually do have a copy of with me, would be Knitting Rules by Stephanie Pearl-McPhee. So Stephanie Pearl-McPhee, she runs a blog. It's the yarnharlot.ca because she lives in Canada, so she is also known as the Yarn Harlot on the internet. Her blog is fantastic. I actually started reading her blog on the recommendation of a friend in high school, and I've been reading it regularly ever since. She is a great writer, very entertaining, very honest and funny, and generally it's always interesting to hear her perspective on things. So I'm a big fan of her and of her writing. What she writes is knitting humor, so just her kind of thoughts on the craft and her different experiences throughout the years. She talks about how she's been knitting for over 40 years, so she has a lot of stories, and she's been a passionate knitter for a really long time. So she has a lot of feelings, a lot of opinions, and a lot of funny and interesting and insightful things to say about knitting in general. And Knitting Rules is my favorite book of hers because she starts with a little introduction about knitting and different experiences she's had with it, and she talks about some typical kind of funny challenges that knitters face and that they must overcome. But then she goes into a discussion of 4 main categories of basic garments that you might want to knit. So she talks about hats, she talks about scarves, socks, and sweaters. And Especially the chapters on hats and on socks are extremely useful. When I knit my first pair of socks, I used her sock recipe that she has in here. He really kind of talks you through it. So a sock it's a little structurally complex, and it can be a little intimidating the first time you're going through it. You don't really know what you're doing or how it's going to turn out, and she really talks you through it and lets you take that leap of faith that if you follow the instructions, it's going to come out fine. And I think this book is really, really great if you are looking to maybe progress a little bit beyond just being a beginner knitter. So Knitting Rules by Stephanie Pearl-McPhee. The next one I want to talk about, this would be number 3. This is a Treasury of Knitting Patterns by Barbara G. Walker. This is just a collection, not of projects, so not actual garments or things that you would make, but of just stitch patterns. So like this, she starts going through some basic categories. So we start with basic knit purl stitches. She also, let's see, she has a chapter with all different types of lace stitches. She has a chapter on cables, so how to make those beautiful Aran sweaters, the complex knot work all over them, starting from really, really basic cables all the way up to very complex, intricate, big cable motifs that you can do. And it's fairly easy to follow. It's not super exciting to look at. This is an older book, so it's all black and white, and it doesn't have any charts in it. So if you love charts, this might not be the stitch dictionary for you, but Barbara G. Walker is very well known in the knitting community, and she has a lot of really, really high quality books, and this book has a lot of information in it. It's actually the first in a set of 3, I think. This is Elizabeth Zimmerman's Knitter's Almanac. It's a very petite book, lightweight, I think. So she is well known for being a fearless knitter and very funny and entertaining, and for encouraging other knitters to be fearless and brave in their knitting as well. And the Knitter's Almanac just takes you through a year, month by month. It takes you through a year in her life, and for each month she just kind of includes her thoughts that she was thinking for the month, you know, as the different seasons change. What is she doing? What is she thinking about? How is she feeling? What is going on with her knitting? How do her projects change throughout the year? And then also for each month she includes a project. It's all written in a style to encourage you to come up with your own designs and kind of adjust these very loose recipes to fit your own needs. So she will give very general instructions on how to do each of these projects if you want to adjust them and make them your own, and then she also gives more specific patterns with directions you can follow step by step. So it's really versatile, it's really great, and I also am really interested in acquiring some of her other books for my library because I've just heard great things about them and I would like to learn more from her. Number 4, we have Knitting Nature by Norah Gaughan. I think that's how you say her last name. The subtitle for this is 39 Designs Inspired by Patterns in Nature. It is a beautiful, beautiful book, and that's really why I've included it in here. I think it's my favorite pattern book that I own. There's always a lot that you can find on the internet. There's so much available out there, but I love having this book because I can just pick it up and flip through it. And I've knit several of the projects in here, and I have plans to do some more this year, and hopefully I'll get through most of the ones in the book at some point in my life. So the concept of the book is that it's knitting patterns inspired by patterns in nature. So she divides the book up into several chapters, and each chapter is a different type of pattern found in nature. So for instance, the first chapter, which has several projects in it, is all about hexagons. So for each chapter there's a little introduction that she does, and she talks about, you know, specifically what kinds of patterns she's referring to, what objects in nature might we find these patterns in, the challenges of adapting those complex patterns to actual knitted garments. This is definitely my favorite collection of patterns that I own. There's lots of other pattern books that I would like to own, but this is my favorite one that I do own. at the moment. So those are my top 5 picks for knitting books in my knitting library. If you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them. If you have some favorites that I didn't mention, that would be really cool. Or if you also own these books and have some experience with them, I'd love to know your thoughts. As I said, my library isn't huge, so this is just what I've chosen from the ones that I have, the ones that I have some experience with. And I hope you enjoyed. If you'd like to see more of my knitting and what I'm up to in terms of crafts, you can go over to my blog. I will link it down below. It's theyarneater.com, and there I just talk about knitting all the time. I never shut up about it. That's what I do over there. So if you're interested in that, you can go and check it out. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.